California Congressman Kevin Kiley, he is sounding the alarm in his home state, saying under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership, it has become the, quote, fraud capital of America.
And we have team coverage. Our national correspondent Alana Austin is on Capitol Hill with more on the investigations into Tim Walz. But we start with correspondent Heather Myers, who has more on what is going on in California. A rainy day out there on the West Coast. Heather, what can you tell us?
Well, good afternoon to you, Katrina and Andrew. This latest report was issued by the state auditor, and that's a nonpartisan position. That state auditor now puts 8 state agencies on a high-risk list of agencies to watch out for things like fraud and mismanagement as well as waste. Here's a look at that 92-page report. Newly added to the high-risk list is California's food stamp program. If the state doesn't get the improper payments under control, it could cost an extra $2.5 billion. Also on there is the Department of Finance, which was tasked with giving out COVID relief funds. Critics say $32 billion of that was taken by fraudsters. Then there are infrastructure issues like California's deteriorating dams and also the high-speed train that's already cost taxpayers $18 billion without a single section of track complete.
Oh, stop. Lord have mercy. This is one of the many reasons why I often, reject the whole two sides of the same coin argument. I understand it. And, I don't argue against people with that. You know what I mean? Because, in many respects, Republicans, Democrats, liberal, conservative, whatever, two sides of the same coin. Everybody, in the federal government, it's all WWE. None of it is like real. I get that more or less to a degree. And there is some truth to it in many regards. But time and time again, when I come across these stories, which seem to be just endless, it's always Democrats that are participating in some of the most egregious, in-your-face fraud that is happening in this country, time and time again. I mean, come on, man. $32 billion in C-19 relief funds, just poof. And we don't even have Somalis here. All right. I'm in California. I'm in Los Angeles to be exact. This isn't Minneapolis. Okay. I don't know what the Somali population looks like here, but it's non-existent. Okay. If there is one. So that's just the typical fraudulent nature of California. Of people scamming, wheeling and dealing and stealing. Okay, that's just what goes on here. And then you're talking about the high-speed rail, the bullet train, $18 billion just vanished like magic. And not a single layer of track has been laid down. Where did the money go? At least you can say the C-19 funds are $32 billion, even though it doesn't make it much better. But you can say that at least, it's fraud. It's people that took advantage of the system. What can you do? You know what I mean? Which is a lie. There's a lot you can do. But when you're talking about the high-speed rail, when you're talking about that bullet train, where $18 billion has been spent, but not one track has been laid down, that's Gavin Newsom in the gang. That's Karen Bass in the gang. That's just the local body politicians. What did you guys do with the money? How do you spend $18 billion and literally have zero to show for it? Where did the $18 billion go? And in between the C-19 funds, which is gone, $32 billion, and the high-speed rail money, that's $50 billion right there. Poof, vanished. I just want to know how come I don't come across this kind of news and information concerning, red states. I'm not saying that there's no fraud in red states and red cities. Obviously there is. That would be very ignorant for me to say that. But once again, I'm standing on that point. People like to come to me with that two sides of the same coin argument. And I get it. And like I said, I don't really push back against it too much because I get it. But I don't know How many times I'm going to come across stories like this, and it's always Democrat-ran states and or cities that are participating in this type of fraud on this level. This is out of control. And at some point, somebody has to get held accountable, but nobody ever does. And that's what's really upsetting.
Other reports cite $24 billion spent on the homeless issue that critics claim the state lost track of. More recently, there's a report that says California cell phone users paid a surcharge for years to upgrade the state's 911 system. Here's Congressman Kevin Kiley talking about what happened to that plan.
That after spending $650 million on that system, the state is totally scrapping it and starting over, completely wasted the money because the technology doesn't work. Mind you, we are very close to Silicon Valley in Sacramento, and yet the government can't figure out how to make basic technology perform.
It's not that they can't figure out how to make basic technology perform. The government is actively engaging in stealing. You don't need, I hate to pick up. I'm not going to say what I was going to say concerning certain communities in Minneapolis. I'm not going to just pick on them like that. But you don't need, who needs certain communities to be in your city and state? Okay. Who needs them when you have Gavin Newsom and the actual governing body of California just taking money? Allegedly. I assume. I mean, that's all I can assume. Where did it go? What happened? All we've sat here and listened to this video where all they've talked about is how billions at this point, what, close to $100 billion, if not more, boop, gone. This is why I also support very strongly what Trump wants to do with SNAP EBT. What did they say? I have it written down. $2.5 billion loss in overpayment of EBT funds. So you guys are just overpaying people up to $2.5 billion. Taxpayer money just, and the local governing body here just shrugs their shoulders. Okay. And once again, this is a nonpartisan audit right here. There's no agenda. They're just looking straight forward at the books and trying to make an account for where this money is going. And they don't know. It's just disappearing. All types of fraud. And you don't hear anything about it. And we weren't going to hear anything about it. Gavin Newsom was never going to say anything about this. Karen Bass, the mayor of LA here where I am, a troll-faced mayor, she was never going to say anything about this. And ultimately, these are the people that want to run the country. Gavin Newsom wants to be president of the United States. He's going to run in 2028, and he most likely will be the nominee in 2028. This is really the guy who you want running our country. With all the fraud, the homelessness, the high taxes, everything that we have here, cost of living is out of control here in California. With as horribly ran as this state is ran, I can't even begin to imagine if Gavin Newsom was the president of the United States. Jesus Christ.